There is a truth about modern history that is rarely spoken aloud, not because it is unclear, but because it is inconvenient. For the United States, war has never existed solely to defend borders, protect freedom, or uphold justice. Beneath every slogan and speech has run a quieter motive: money. Conflict was not just chaos to endure, it was leverage to exploit. While families sent their children to die and accepted scarcity as duty, a parallel system operated in silence, converting mass death into balance sheet growth. America did not simply fight wars. It learned how to harvest them. To see how this machinery was built, we must return to 1914. The First World War detonated across Europe, and America watched from a distance. Empires bled themselves dry. Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary. Entire civilizations burned manpower and material faster than they could replace it. Trenches filled with bodies. Shells erased cities. National treasuries collapsed under the weight of endless mobilization. War became a financial emergency before it became a military one. That emergency created an opening. From across the Atlantic, American banks and factories stepped forward, not as saviors, but as suppliers. Food, steel, fuel, weapons all flowed outward. Wall Street moved faster than Washington. Banking giants like J.P. Morgan brokered enormous loans to the Allied powers while acting as purchasing agents for their war needs. The numbers were staggering even by modern standards. These deals exceeded what the U.S. government itself was spending annually. And every shipment came with interest attached. By the time America entered the war in 1917, neutrality was already fiction. The U.S. financial system had tied its fortunes to Allied survival. A British or French defeat would have meant financial collapse on Wall Street. From that point forward, foreign war was no longer distant. It was personal. Victory had to happen, not for ideals, but for solvency. At home, the population was quietly absorbed into the system. Liberty bonds were sold as moral obligations. Posters shamed hesitation. Patriotic theater turned savings into state loans. Children were trained early to surrender coins in the name of national duty. An entire society was converted into a financial support network for war. But the rewards did not flow evenly. Small savers gave modest contributions. Industrialists and financiers extracted fortunes. Factories expanded. Profits spiked. Banking power reached levels previously unimaginable. A precedent was locked into place. War could be funded through mass public debt, managed by private financial elites. This blueprint would never be abandoned. By the Second World War, the process had been perfected. Europe collapsed again. America industrialized at maximum speed. Even before formal entry, production surged. Once the war began, output became industrialized destruction. Ships, aircraft, tanks, and bombs produced in quantities designed not just to win, but to overwhelm. The financing followed automatically. War bonds flooded the population. The Federal Reserve stabilized demand. Patriotism became a sales pitch. Over 85 million Americans bought in, funding more than half the total cost. The lesson had been learned. Sacrifice could be monetized. Corporate America thrived. Contracts were guaranteed. Efficiency was irrelevant. Risk was socialized. Profit was protected. War was no longer a national tragedy, it was a controlled economic environment. Meanwhile, something far more consequential occurred beneath the noise. Money itself changed. Gold became inconvenient. Convertibility was suspended. The dollar slowly detached from physical restraint and attached itself to power. Bretton Woods formalized what war had already decided. The dollar became global law. American dominance was no longer enforced only by armies, but by currency. Europe's destruction financed America's ascension. War rearranged the financial hierarchy of the planet. Peace after 1945 was an illusion. The Cold War ensured permanent mobilization. Defense budgets expanded endlessly. Entire sectors existed solely because war spending never stopped. Economists rationalized it. Politicians normalized it. A war economy became a peacetime foundation. Once profit depends on conflict, peace becomes a liability. Vietnam proved the point. Militarily disastrous. Financially operational. Contracts continued. Deficits grew. Inflation accelerated. The lie of guns and butter collapsed. In 1971, the final restraint snapped. Gold was severed from money entirely. The dollar became pure faith, maintained by dominance, not discipline. From that moment forward, force and finance were inseparable. Oil pricing locked global demand for dollars. Military presence enforced monetary architecture. Currency was backed by aircraft carriers. Later wars followed effortlessly. The Gulf War served as both battlefield and marketing campaign. Weapons doubled as advertisements. Stock prices rose in real time. War became spectacle, and profit followed visibility. Then came the war on terror. Endless, borderless, financially limitless. Trillions were spent. Nations were dismantled. Outcomes failed politically, but financially, the system succeeded perfectly. Contracts honored. Interest accrued. Shareholders rewarded. Victory was unnecessary. Continuity was enough. Soldiers left. Bills remained. Today, the military-industrial complex is no longer adjacent to the financial system. It is the financial system. Defense spending breaks records. Wall Street depends on it. Politicians protect it. Regions survive on it. Even in silence, the machine operates. You feel its consequences daily. Inflation, debt, taxation. The techniques refined in war now define civilian life. Bailouts echo mobilization. Crises justify intervention. The logic never changed. And this is the most disturbing truth. Conflict is not an accident. It is functionality. Crisis creates dependence. Dependence creates control. Control preserves profit. This is not about morality. It is about design. Money and power have always moved together. History makes this clear for those willing to look. When wars are proposed, when budgets expand, when living costs rise, ask a harder question. Not who must be stopped, but who is being rewarded. This is financial literacy at its core, understanding the architecture that governs sacrifice and reward. Wars may end. The system they build does not. And if you do not understand it, you will continue paying, long after the bodies are buried. If this perspective sharpened your view of history, subscribe. The past doesn't hide the truth. It just waits for people willing to see it.